What's going on, party people? It is movie time.
Movie time?
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Movie Time. This is the beefiest episode in regards to the Oscars that we're going to be doing. We are going to be addressing Best Feature Film. So a lot to talk about here. Let's try not to waste too much time, but I am your co-host, Rene, aka LOWKEY GEEK, here with my buddy, Blake Wolf, the Wolf.
What how's it going, Rene?
Good. I'm excited to talk about everything we're going to be talking about in this episode, because this is the meat and potatoes here. This is what people are dying to see every year. Who's going to walk away with best film overall, right? So, like I said, it's a lot to talk about. So, join in the conversation. I'm sure there's going to be tons of opinions out there, people with their own personal favorites, those who want to choose one movie to win over the other. So definitely want to hear all your thoughts about these categories. Let us know in the comments section. And as always, show us some love. Hit that like, smash it, punch it, tickle it, do whatever you want to it. Just as long as you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. It really goes a long way for us. And if you want an audio version of this episode, you can find it on the LOWKEY GEEK channel through your podcast platform of choice. Just look for that and you can download the episode directly from there. Cool. So I think it's time. Let's talk about the gigantic category here. We're going to be talking about 10 movies. And it is Best Feature Film. So let me change the screen here and what? Best Picture. There you go.
Get ready too. I'm just gonna clear my throat. Vocal exercises. This could be a beast to go down the list.
So since this is a huge category, I think what we're going to do is that we're going to go down the list, give our thoughts on each of the films nominated here. So at least we could evenly talk about each of the categories and give them the proper light. So first we have Belfast. So Belfast, I'll start off here. I saw it in the theater. Again, we talked about its choice of black and white and everything. I thought it did add to the charm of the movie. I thought the acting was pretty decent all throughout. We mentioned Snubs as far as the main lead actress there. I think she should have definitely been nominated for sure, because she was the standout for me throughout the whole movie. The kid's cute and all that, and all that. He did what he had to do. We have Kieran Hines, who does a really good job. The nomination for Judi Dench is questionable, really. Still, I don't understand how that happened. But the movie as a whole was a decent movie. I know a lot of people, when that movie came out, were talking about how amazing of a movie it was. And this was probably the best movie of all of last year and all this. Kenneth Branagh, whatever he directs, he actually does a really good job in directing and all that. But again, we're talking about picture here, and this is about the producers attached and the ensemble of the people who brought this movie together. I think the movie does a really good job at portraying a real true to life story of his upbringing and this situation surrounding it. Would I consider it to be Best Picture? Probably not, but if you were to round up some of the best movies that came out of the year, I would have to agree that this is probably one of them, even though it's not at the very top of the list.
Yeah, if you told me that Dame Judi Dench had a KGB level operation where she has dirt on just the majority of and has security threatening and intimidating voters, that makes sense for why she got a nomination. Otherwise, I don't get it. We talked about this one with Best Director, so I'll keep my thoughts brief. It was a crowd pleaser. It was well done, well executed. I don't think anyone's taking it seriously for a winner in this category. Mm-hmm. It's almost like, because of the ranked choice voting aspect, this will be a middle favorite. Some people might have it in the top choice. A bunch of people might have it in the top three. I don't think it will be the number one choice on enough ballots to
Mm.
actually win out. It is the kind of movie, though, you have to take it seriously because nobody has a problem with it. And there's some years where we see that's all it takes is just being lovable, even if you're not the best movie. That's happened too many times, and it has kind of that feel. It reminds me in some ways of like a Little Miss Sunshine family movie that everyone's going to enjoy. And some aspects of it remind me of Green Book too.
Mm.
If I almost wonder if it was a number one choice, maybe there would be more backlash happening right now. It's a pretty harmless movie. Uh, I it feels like one of those that when people put it through like a critical microscope, it actually they say, oh, that wasn't as good as Power of the Dog or Drive My Car, or great movies that deserve to be taken seriously.
Right.
I left kind of going like, yeah, that was good Oscar bait, and that's how I feel about it. It was well done. It was a good movie.
Hmm.
There are some years where this might be a favorite. I'm glad that that's not this year. That we had some things that were really top of the line that we can get to. But pretty inoffensive movie. Some of the acting nominations don't make sense. That we do have Judi Dench and we don't have Balfe, but. Otherwise, yeah, it was a lovely movie. Nothing to get mad about, but nothing to get too
No,
excited about.
no, absolutely. Next we have Coda. Coda was a movie that came out on Apple Plus with very limited theatrical release time, but it was a movie that shocked me in a good way. I was so very surprised on how much I loved this movie last year. It was tear jerky, it was heartwarming, nice coming of age story, great ensemble cast that features majority of deaf actors in it, which I thought was a great choice and a necessary choice if you wanted to really portray that type of storyline. We talked about Troy Kotzer, who's nominated for supporting actor, and how I really would love for him to win that award. You also have oh God, it happened on this previous episode too.
Marley
Marley
Matlin?
Matlin,
I'm doing it
yeah,
off the
Marley
top.
Matlin, yeah,
Okay.
who also does gives a stunning performance for her character and her role in there. Very well directed, and I think if anything, out of all the movies that I watched last year, this is probably one of those that had the most heart in it, and it again gets you in the feels big time. So when it was announced for Best Picture, I was actually very happy because I didn't think it was going to get considered for anything, to be honest with you, because not a lot of people were talking enough about it. So the fact that it made it onto this list, it made me super happy, super happy. So yeah.
This is another one of those. We talked about it with Flea, where if a movie is heavy, then sometimes I'll put it off until I'm in a good headspace to watch it. This one ended
Mhm.
up not being. It has a punch, but it definitely landed much softer than I thought it would. I seem to be the only person who wasn't like floored by this movie. I and it's that's surprising to me, and then when I've told friends about it, because like the disability representation in this movie, that's awesome. I'm a big fan
Mhm.
of that. There's something interesting about the dynamic there, where the lead actress and the centerpiece of the story is a speaking character
Right.
who isn't deaf. It makes me wonder if maybe that makes it more palatable for
Mhm.
the audiences, so then it does get the love and it made so much money at Sundance when it was bought by Apple, to where they felt like maybe that'd be an easier sell than having the main character doing sign. But overall, like the representation is awesome. Love the characters. It was heartwarming as hell of a
Mhm.
story. And we've talked about it before, but family stories, like everyone's been part of a family or near a family, like
Yeah.
that makes it to where it can hit anybody where they are. It was a really beautiful and well done human story. At the end of the day, I didn't feel like it was overall just as a film
Mhm.
exceptional quality. I feel like it was an exceptional story, and that's something we see throughout, especially the Oscars, and we don't see it at some other. At the Oscars, I feel like, and it's almost like an American way of looking at movies, where the story is more important than the execution of the story. And how did it make me feel? And is it a crowd pleaser? Is it something I want to see with my family or take my kids to or whatever? I personally didn't love the execution. There wasn't anything wrong with it, but to me, like the directing wasn't anything to necessarily write home about. The casting was awesome, and then I'm also thinking about where last year we had Sound of Metal in Best Picture nomination. We talked about Riz Ahmed with our when we're talking about animated movies and being a
Yep.
producer on Flea. But that is someone who is able to hear playing someone who is going deaf. This movie, I think they did a lot of things right. So on the behind the scenes aspect, I almost feel, and obviously it made so much at Sundance. If we were only looking at like the business aspect of this movie, that is definitely it is more outstanding to me than the directing and that final film product. And then the other main thing about it is acting. So I'm glad that's getting cred. And my understanding right now is that Troy Kotzer is the favorite for supporting actor. If it wins that, I think that's a good night. Good night for CODA,
Right.
and a good night for disability, a good evening for disability representation.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a big contender in Best Picture overall, but I'm very glad it's on this list for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. To go back to what you mentioned too, the choice of having the lead actress, giving her a speaking role and having her not be the deaf person in that family, I think in a way that kind of puts us in her shoes, makes us be able to relate to what she may be going through, because as an audience we may not all be able to relate to the members of the family who are deaf and who can't speak, and they communicate through sign language, but to use her as the one we're following throughout the storyline, it makes it a lot more relatable. And I think that's why a lot of people were touched by this movie at the end of the day, to go through what she has to go through and see the challenges that her and her family have to face every day. It just made it a really, really great choice. And again, another notch on that belt of why this movie I think is well deserved of at least this nomination, right? So next we have Adam McKay's Don't Look Up. So yeah, a lot of people had different things to say about this movie. Definitely it is a very Adam McKay movie. It had a lot of humor and kind of dark humor, a lot of nods and pokes at real life situations and kind of putting it into the forefront. I enjoyed probably 2/3 of the movie, and then I would say towards the end, I already got tired of the shtick. I think it was just a little bit too preachy at the end and too close to home. Where we are living in a situation where government sometimes can be seen as a joke, and he really puts that in the forefront in this movie. And I'm just like, I live this every day. I don't need to watch a movie highlighting the absurdity that we see sometimes, right? So, but that being said, again, the actors that they got in this movie, I think, did a great job. Leo did a really good job. It was nice to see Jennifer Lawrence back in a prominent role. She's been kind of she took a little seat back for a while, because I think there was a bit of J-Lo fatigue out there, so it was nice to see her come back, but I didn't see her being anything but what she normally would be like, as far as acting is concerned. I think the standout for me was definitely Jonah Hill. Every time he was on screen, I couldn't help but laugh, because it was, when I talk about absurd, he is the definition of absurd when it comes to characters in this movie. But yeah, it is what it is. Like I said, I don't hate it. It just, like, after a while, I got tired of the McKay shtick, and I was just like, okay, I get it. You don't need to pound me over the head with it and all that, So, and I think a lot of people felt the same way.
Yeah, I think because the question is on the Adam McKay shtick is, who is Adam McKay as a director? And this is the third in a row where it's a serious political topic. But the last two were nonfiction, where it was about The Big Short, and it was about Dick Cheney with Vice. This one was make believe, and conceptually it's based on reality, but that's true with a lot of comedies and satires, and they're sending up our current society. Like in ways, Anchorman is also a send up of like sexism of the 70s, right? So we know he's able to make movies that are where he's using comedy from that time. This feels like a step backwards for his directing career. I think he had so much shine from Big Short, and then from Vice, and this might be the end of that run. I wouldn't be surprised if unless he goes back to his best form. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't get taken seriously at the Oscars for a little bit, just because this was more shticky. I had a great time with this movie. I really enjoyed it. Kind of surprised Leonardo DiCaprio didn't get like even much talk when it comes to the acting category. I mean, if we mentioned him in our snubs, it was so untalked about. That one was actually a good role, in my opinion, like where he's doing some acting, whereas a lot of people here are doing like Meryl Streep's character in an SNL skit, and J Law is kind of playing like angsty, yelly person, and there's not a lot of nuance in that acting. That's something that was different about The Big Short, is where he's taking beautiful, cool people and making them total quant nerds, and like in this various and taking a very difficult subject matter and making it entertaining and appealing, which was what was so impossible about that movie. In this one, it's almost like that formula got messed up. And so he's taking great actors that he's now able to get into his movies, giving them simpler roles, and then taking something that is also miserable or like a difficult subject, like The Big Short, but it's not complex. There's a meteor heading to Earth, and we need to get half of the population to say, "Don't look up." And how did we get there as a society? And it is honestly, it is a pretty good send up. And if somebody wanted to talk about what are the most like movies that speak to the Trump era in American history, or even the era in a lot of ways that we're still in, this is a pretty good satire. At the end of the day, I don't know if it was a great movie, and I'm not sure what his next move is. I hope it's a step up. We'll see. Not a sequel to the Step Up franchise, which that would be cool too, but I mean, a step up in quality.
That could be interesting. Can you imagine an Adam McKay step up movie? Like that would be something phenomenal. And if you are watching Winning Time on HBO Max, I do feel like he is going back to the McKay that you appreciate from The Big Short and Vice, because again, he is retelling something that actually really happened, and the history of the Lakers and all that. And from what I've seen so far, I am actually enjoying that more than probably Don't Look Up, as a whole.
Yeah, no, I love it. That was the first episode blew me away. I'm excited. I'm excited for that show. You're right. That is his next move right now. And I think I don't know if it's a COVID thing with the timing, but that's good that he gets to go to something. Well, I'm curious how it ends up and how it's perceived by the end of this season. But I'm loving the show.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I'm having a technical issue, so I'm going to go off camera for a second. But definitely feel free to go on with the next credit.
No worries. So next up on the list is Drive My Car. I think we talked a lot about this movie in the previous category. Again, if you had a chance to watch my live reaction as the nominees were being announced, I lost my shit when they announced Drive My Car as in the Best Picture category, because again, like in directing, I was not expecting anyone to consider this movie at all, even though it was probably top 3 favorite movies I watched all of last year. So when it was announced, I was so pleased and so happy. And again, like I mentioned in the previous category, if I lived in a world that was catered to me, this would be another Parasite moment for me, because I would just love, not only because I love the movie, but I want people to be able to recognize Japanese cinema more. Kind of just like when Parasite won, I think that opened the eyes more to people when it comes to Korean film. K-dramas have always been popular for the longest time, and you have platforms like Netflix who really support that, and putting up a lot of K-dramas there for people to watch. But as far as like cinema and actual film is concerned, I think this helped open the door for more of that realization for a more general movie-going audience. And I really would love it if this can do that as well, because there's so many great Japanese films out there that I'm sure 95% of the movie-going audience have no knowledge about. And I think if anything, that's just what I want this movie to accomplish for everybody. But yeah, I love this movie a lot. I think I said a lot about it. So yeah, off to you. Now that your video's about it.
Yeah, you can hear me, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool, perfect. Drive My Car. I would the idea of you just like fist pumping every single time it's mentioned, and then it
Oh
keeps
yeah.
getting mentioned as the categories get better.
Uh,
That's a sweet moment. Um, this one, yeah, I think again, if we're talking about the business aspect of it, the fact that it got here
mhm.
says a lot. There's another option where it ends up not getting the festival shine that it gets and doesn't get that word of mouth thing going. And it's on Criterion. And 10 years from now, you go, hey, did you ever see this one? Let me recommend that to you.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it got in front of me. I'm glad that it got in front of such a large audience. And then once you get
Mhm.
a Best Picture nomination, a lot of people go see it just for that.
Yeah.
Being able to put that on the, I guess it would be the DVD back in the day. Now with the streamer, they get to put on the thumbnail.
Yep.
But getting this nomination, I'm glad that on the business aspect that it's able to be a more successful movie, not just one that's well done. I was listening to an interview with the director the other day, and the way they put it, because the question was like, why do you think this movie got as much attention as it did, and why do you think it speaks to people? And at first he was like, I don't know, I'd have to ask you. And then said something that to me was absolutely brilliant, where he's talking about what happens in the movie is there's a main character who loves someone, and then that love goes away and the fallout of that. And he basically says, and I'm gonna paraphrase it here. It was done beautifully by the translator in this interview, but um, that every single human, the problem with love is that the greater you love someone, we know it ends eventually, either sadly, like this is depressing as hell, but like either through death or breakup, or somebody, Casablanca train comes and takes the person away. And
Yeah.
so everyone has that issue in their life, that they love people, and this is something that they're not dealing with directly, and that you can't, or else like it becomes impossible to be a human.
Mhm.
And then even if we haven't all had, we're not directing a play after our wife died. This is a very human story, and I think that's part. I didn't even thought about it in that way.
Mhm.
I think it's a fair question. What makes this movie so special? So it takes this universal concept that is something that is underrepresented and is emotionally difficult, and it packages it so perfectly. The 3 hours go by like a quick car ride, and just no bumps along the road. And I was fully into it. I absolutely love this movie. Um, I'm so glad it's on this list.
No, for sure, yeah, and then, like kind of like what I was alluding to when we were talking about it in the previous category, um, it portrays the complex human emotions that is not easy to portray on screen or any media. You know, I think people tend to forget how, you know, human experiences, human emotions aren't always black and white. There's a lot of gray areas too, and I think a lot of people have problems acknowledging that that's true. And the one thing that this film does, it challenges that way of thinking. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, you love somebody, but then they did something as well. You know, could you still equally love that person knowing that that's the case and she's not going to be able to change, or he's not going to be able to change, and all that stuff. And then the fallout once that person is gone from your life, right? So it really challenges you to think about those things, and I think that's one of the things I really do love about this movie is that, yeah, you know, like it makes you think, and then in a way kind of almost makes you think about, well, how did my life turn out, and what are the experiences I went through, and all that, you know, and how did it affect me, or is it still affecting me, right? Yeah, and I think again the human nature of it all was just so brilliantly done.
Know why, but I'm thinking of the movie Marriage Story, and the meme from it is Adam Driver punching the wall. And so
Sure.
often we get movies that are over the top emotional, and we would get that above and beyond performance. But there is also a moment in Marriage Story, because I was thinking of like what are times where we do get to see that nuance done so quietly. I'm
Hmm.
thinking of the moment near the end of that where Scarlett Johansson's character is tying Adam Driver's character's shoes at the end of the movie, and this is someone who they've had all this difficult, miserable history. He's punching the wall. They're screaming at each other, and there's this very sweet moment
Oh
that,
yeah.
if an audience just wants something spoon fed to them, it doesn't make sense. Why are you being nice to him? You're mad at him. And
Mhm.
yet, human drama is so complicated and nuanced. And for a story this subtle and quiet, it takes a story like when you get in hear a newer car like a Tesla, and it's just the engine turns on you, like that's how this movie is executed, where you're not seeing
Yeah.
someone turning the volume up the whole time or touching the buttons, and instead it's subtly is able to then communicate those subtle and difficult to explain human emotions. That might be
Yeah.
what makes it so successful. Well said, Rene.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. I sometimes know what I'm talking about. Uh, Next, we have Dune, which is probably you could consider to be the huge blockbuster movie on this list, the only blockbuster movie on this list. The visual effects, heavy soundtrack, whatever you want to call it, masterpiece from Denis Villeneuve here. Like we mentioned before, took an almost impossible task and transforming a storyline and being able to translate that onto the big screen to what some would say pretty huge success based off its reception, right? We already know Denny is a brilliant filmmaker and he loves the visual spectacle. He loves the cinematic experience as far as getting the full look and feel and sound when watching this movie on the big screen. And if you didn't watch Dune on the big screen, I think you may have missed a lot of that, because I watched it in the theater twice and it hit me equally the same each time I saw it. You watch it at home, you still appreciate the story and the acting and all that stuff like that, but it's really the movie going experience that this movie really brought to you. And it's nice to see something like this recognized. It definitely was one of, not top 3, but top 5 for sure movies for me of last year. But it was just nice to see it, a little nod to it, and like, okay, we recognize that, Denny did a good job here, and and the cast that they were able to put together too. I mean, it's just unbelievable that they were able to get such a full-fledged cast for this movie.
Yeah, the as you know, this isn't my genre necessarily, the fantasy sci-fi stuff. It's definitely more yours.
Mm-hmm.
You better be able to speak to it. I think just as far as the movie-ness of it goes, the fact that it wasn't a flop says so much. As soon as people hear that Dune's being made, they're going like, "Oh God, please don't do it again," or else. Like the fact that it even was able to get made, and it took Denis Villeneuve so many years to try to get it made. Blade Runner 2049 is an all-time favorite movie of mine.
Yep.
We know that this director is capable of taking high class, high quality IP and doing something cool and new with it that's respectable to the original property. This was well done. I'm excited to see the sequel. You're right about the cast. I think that's one of the cooler, funner things about it, is especially when you have someone where, if the novel is the most the thing that's lasted the longest in the culture, is people already have an image of what that character should be and should look like, and so that's so much more difficult than if you just had an original story. I like the Timothée Chalamet casting a lot. He's obviously one of the most popular humans on the planet, even if especially older folks don't love him as much or take him seriously as a leading man. I like that a lot. It's not my genre. I left it going, that was really well done. That was cool. I'm glad I saw that. That was awesome. So with that is really high praise for me with from that genre. I had an awesome time, and it was obviously the craft of it was really well done. We're not going to talk about score, so I think this is a fine time to mention the score for this movie was phenomenal. Yeah. That's when I think it will / I hope it will, that Hans Zimmer gets for that category, gets a win there. I don't think I know we'll talk about our predictions close to the end, but I don't think it'll get the win here. We talked about it was snubbed for director. It was a super well done movie, and everyone knows that the Academy needs more blockbusters in order to get more eyeballs on the presentation. I also almost think that they should maybe go the other direction and go more towards their base and at least lock down the viewers who take movies seriously, as opposed to trying to play to both crowds and then missing out on both, where no one takes it seriously. That said, Dune deserves it in both ways. Yes, people bought tickets to go see it, and it was a very well done movie.
Yeah, definitely more of a show up than Tenet was. So if anything,
wait, whoa! Don't talk about. Okay, Renee.
Sorry, I had to do a quick dig
Why?
at Christopher Nolan there.
Now we're gonna have a
Eh,
1 hour sidebar about Tenet and what our thoughts. We should
Stay
have
tuned
recorded
to a
that drive
future
home from the
episode.
theater. Yeah, seriously. The
Yeah, a
20-year
future
anniversary.
episode. um, but so my only last question about, because I agree with you, I don't think it's going to walk away with the win in this category. Could this be another Peter Jackson situation where, like, kind of what he did with Lord of the Rings, everyone waited for the last movie to come out, and then that's what swept the Oscars that year? Could this also be that type of situation if part two and part three, if they knock it out of the park, like big time, and there's no other major competition, right? Like that comes out, could Denny finally get that recognition for his accomplishment for all the movies, right? I think it's possible, but again, it's hard to say without knowing, what's coming out around those times, right? And if part two becomes a major flop, then we probably won't even be able to get to see a part three,
Right.
So who's to say? But it would be interesting to see for sure. That is, if he doesn't come across, I don't know, an Avatar 3 or something that year comes out.
Yeah, we'll have to see about that.
Yeah.
Here's my skin turned purple right as you mentioned Avatar 3.
There you go.
The I that narrative doesn't make sense to me. I think people use that to explain why he was snubbed for director, and maybe there's enough voters who say, "I gotta wait to see until your whole franchise is complete." We've seen movies that are part of franchises win early on before. I don't know if that's enough of a reason, and it also makes me wonder: will it get that much love when it comes out? Obviously, we have to see what that property's like. If it was the exact same thing, I wouldn't be surprised if they said, "Oh, damn, you can do it twice. Now we'll give you the love," but that the one time wasn't enough. That is possible. I don't know if people are necessarily saying like, "Well, I know there's going to be a part two, so I'll just wait and do it then." It might be that someone executed something, and it's more difficult when you do something multiple times and do it right each time. That, especially in Hollywood, sequels are big money earners, but when you do it well, it's all the difference in the world. And then some things have been single-handedly created IP because someone did it well 3 times in a row. And like Star Wars has made billions for the industry when like at one point that was just what one movie that had done well. But once you have 3 in a row, like now you're talking next level. So maybe that's what it would take for him to get the cred. Denis Villeneuve is also a respected director. I think it might just be the votes didn't quite add up this year, and that might not necessarily have to be the narrative. We don't think it's going to win this one. We'll have to see what the next project is, but I think Villeneuve is making crowd-pleasing movies that cinephiles adore, and that is a good recipe to be at the Oscars for a while to come, regardless of Dune's chances on Sunday or in the future.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. For the week of March 21st, I'm participating with other creators on YouTube to help raise awareness of the level of humanitarian crisis happening in Ukraine. 1 million displaced Ukrainian children urgently need your help. We are teaming up with UNICEF, who will be providing humanitarian aid to these children in need. If you have the means, please visit creatorsforpeace.com and hit that donation button to donate what you can. Any amount will go a very long way. Appreciate your consideration and kindness. Thanks for watching. So next on this list, we have King Richard. This is definitely the category that Will Smith has the huge potential in finally walking away with his best acting nom there. The story of the Williams sisters there, Serena and Venus, their upbringing, the father figure who was their coach that taught him the way, and along with his wife, kind of getting them out of the ghetto of Compton and do something that was unheard of at the time and penetrate a mostly predominant white sport and kind of rule the roost there. We don't get to see the full effect because I think it ends basically at a certain point when they're just starting really and getting that recognition. But we see the trajectory of the two sisters there, and it's definitely one of those empowering movies. It made me feel good at the end of it. You know, like it was uplifting and powerful in a sense that it made me realize what they went through, and how much of an influence their father was for that reason. Very different from like the whole Tiger Woods situation with his dad, you know, and other situations where you have, you know, parents kind of meddling and interfering with someone's trajectory, like maybe like the ball father and all that, you know, as far as in basketball terms, when you talk about that.
Yeah.
I like the movie a lot. I like I said, I left the movie feeling very empowered, very, I felt good. It was definitely a feel good movie. And yeah, I agree. Like Will Smith gave a brilliant performance. But as far as movie as a whole, it does belong on this list, but I don't think it's going to be considered for the win here.
Yeah, I'm a huge tennis fan. Was raised in a tennis loving family and was aware of Richard Williams most of my life. My family got to go see Venus and Serena when they were young,
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
raising their hair. I think Serena was about 13, 14 at the time ish. And they're playing a local tournament in Oklahoma, where I'm from. Um, it was it was so it was so the opposite of today's environment, where Serena's sitting on the small bleachers on the side of the tennis court with her mom. And my mom, she compliments my mom's jewelry. My mom's telling her where to go shopping that weekend in Oklahoma while they're in town. And it's
Oh,
just
that's
like,
awesome.
and when you're talking about like where the movie ends, it basically ends where we know what happens next. Like everything after
Yeah.
that is literally in the history books, because with Serena and her sisters up there, but with Serena, we're talking about greatest athletes in history.
Mm-hmm.
Conversation with Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali, anybody else. So I think that's one of the more interesting things that they did with the movie, is take such a prominent person, and Serena gets the fourth most lines in the movie,
Right.
to my
Mm-hmm.
knowledge. She was in the backseat to Venus earlier in her career, but
Mm-hmm.
in this movie, they didn't change that around, and there was a few moments like, one day, Serena, you'll have your chance, and they're
Yeah.
doing that thing, but otherwise, Will Smith, I think we talked about this with the acting categories. That was a fun episode to do with you. I think Ingenue Ellis gets supporting actress, or at least I think she should. I think that might be and then Will Smith for best actor. I think that might be the best day for this movie at the Oscars. Um, Ingenue Ellis bringing that movie together with her role and how well she executed that role. One that's difficult, where she is like in the Serena kind of way, she is more in the background for a lot of it, but then by the end, it turns out she was the most important person the whole
Yeah.
time, and like keeping that
Mm-hmm.
whole thing together, even if it was more quietly. And then with Will Smith doing the thick accent. His hairline isn't as cute as it is in real life. He's kind of like uglifying himself a little bit. I think that this
Mm-hmm.
movie can win one or two acting categories, and that's a good day for it. At the end, as far as the actual film itself, it was definitely a feel good. It was a family movie. It was some. We know that the Oscars love biopics of well known people. They did a different angle. It wasn't the Serena Williams story. I thought that was
Right.
cool. That they
Right.
found it was about Richard Williams, who is a public figure, but not it's not the same thing as doing like Bohemian Rhapsody. So I think it ticks enough boxes. It makes sense that it's on this list. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
it's special enough of a film on its own right to win Best Picture. We've been seeing Venus and Serena at some of the award shows cheering this movie on. I was listening to an interview with the person who's putting together the show for the Oscars, and they're asking what can we expect. He said something about like, oh, people outside of the Hollywood, normal Hollywood industry will be there. I was like, okay, I have a feeling Serena and Venus are going to be at the Oscars this year. Even if I hated movies, I'd be tuning in just because I like that they've been there and smiling along and having a good time. We were talking earlier about with Best Director and how they caught some straight fire from Jane Campion for no reason, even though she
Mm-hmm.
was trying to praise them. It ended up being like a backhanded compliment. But nonetheless, that moment aside, it's been awesome to see Venus and Serena there, and that star wattage in a room with the likes of Will Smith. It's a powerhouse of a movie, and on the business end, as an adaptation of a difficult man's life, and a difficult history to tell with those sisters, finding something
Yeah,
there, uncovering it, and then doing it so well, as in kind of like it felt like an indie movie at the end of the day.
sure.
That was cool to see.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's also one of those movies where maybe in another year, if this movie came out in a different year where it wasn't as stacked that it is right now, it
Right.
could potentially have that ability to, win film and all that. But I think with all the competition that they have faced right now, you're right. Like for if Will Smith winning, ingenue winning, I think that would be like the nod, the proper nod that this film will get as far as what it was able to accomplish.
That's something we haven't talked about a lot with this Oscars combo, is that a lot of these movies were 2021 movies, or
Yeah,
they were 2020 movies for 2021 Oscar contention. Last year, if it's against Nomadland, I don't know. It's obviously impossible to retcon that history. It's
yeah,
possible that it's a front runner in that conversation. I don't know. Yeah, it definitely. One fun thing about the Oscars this year has been so many movies got pushed into
yeah,
2021 for tragic reasons. But then I remember even early COVID times going like, okay, so if all these movies are getting pushed, they're going to come out eventually. That'll be the
right.
best year in cinema history, and it's been pretty sweet. This list
Hmm.
is stacked. So yeah, now it's more like King Richard might be like the seventh choice of the 10 or something like that. But
Right.
no, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
It deserves its roses.
No, for sure. Next on the list, Licorice Pizza. I think we talked a good amount about this, in the previous category with Paul Thomas Anderson. Again, I can't speak much on it because I didn't see it. So, Blake, I'll let you take go forward with this as far as its significance on this list.
Paul Thomas Anderson, auteur of our times. I think you and I had a conversation recently where we're talking about what are the best current era directors, and there's the all time list, especially when you include people from the '70s, the Scorseses and
Hmm.
Spielbergs, and we're talking about who are those people of our time and who are the best of them. There's the Christopher Nolans, the Denis Villeneuves, the Wes Andersons, and then in my mind, and I know I'm a film bro, Paul Thomas Anderson to me is number one. When you look
Hmm.
at dude's resume, and there aren't misses on the resume. And he's been going strong. Before Boogie Nights, the movie Hard Eight, I loved that movie, even though that was like what helped him get in the door and people taking him seriously. Um, Early John C. Riley, if anyone hasn't seen that, that's a fun. You definitely see Paul Thomas Anderson being a great director right out of the gate. And then everything since then, Magnolia, The Master to me is my favorite. A lot of people put There Will Be Blood at the top of their list. Inherent Vice might be a bit of a whiff. Some people thought early on this might be also more of a whiff, and then enough people saw it. It was this to me is a special movie. It's a unique one. I don't think it's if we're talking about There Will Be Blood or The Master, we're talking about these iconic main characters and this
Hmm.
very heavy subject matter. This one is in some ways sweeter and more lighthearted. We talked about some of the controversies around it, and it is dealing with very specific things of an era. And there's a gas shortage happening that is
Yeah.
crucial to the movie. Bradley Cooper gets a fiery 5 minutes of someone who is in it's almost like in other Wes Anderson or Paul Thomas Anderson movies, he's the main character, that type of like just absolutely mad, power mad, crazed dude. Um,
Right.
it, it's worth it just for those scenes alone. At the end of the day, I think anything Paul Thomas Anderson, you could make a sandwich for breakfast and it could get a Best Picture nomination. That said, I don't think this is going to be finishing strongly in this year's contenders. If it was Phantom Thread, The Master, There Will Be Blood, one of those, then it might be in the conversation, or it might be giving Power of Dog a run for its money. This year,
Hmm.
not so much. It seems like lesser fair, where he's going back to his era of childhood, um, and the and talking about stories from that time. The two main characters are young people. They're both new actors, which I think is one of the more interesting accomplishments from this one. Someone who in The Master directs Daniel Day-Lewis and Philip Seymour Hoffman, two
Hmm.
greatest actors of the last 30 years. I don't know who's arguing with that. Like, there's a few people contending for it, but otherwise, and then he's taken two people, Alana Haim and then Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, and their debut movies, and doing a great job in a more naturalistic movie. I think directorially, it is just as good about as anything else he's done. I think the content, the subject matter, makes it where people aren't taking it as seriously as those movies, and it's not as Oscar baity traditionally as some of the things he's done before. So I think that's probably why it's on this list, and I also think it's part of why it won't be a top contender at all.
Right. Yeah. No, definitely well said there. Like I said, I can't speak too much about it. But hearing you talk about the concept of the movie and how PTA kind of took something from his childhood and stuff that he's familiar with, almost kind of reminiscent to what Quentin did with his last movie too, where he kind of took an era from his life and kind of paid homage to it, right? So it is interesting when you see directors getting to a certain stage in their life where they feel comfortable doing something similar in that vein, right? Like, will we see Spielberg eventually do that? I mean, I know, is it him that's working on his own autobiography, or is that someone else?
That I've intentionally been not paying attention to that news because I'm so fascinated by that project. I'm excited to see what happens there. But we're also talking about we're talking about Roma. We're talking about Kenneth Branagh, and it's almost like if someone gets enough, like they get that blank check where they can just do whatever they want with. They go, hey, what about that time I was nostalgic for, and what anybody who would love to do in therapy is get to relive some of their childhood. And this one actually not too dissimilar from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's more of a tribute to that era. It's not about him. It's supposedly his friend. It has a lot of these stories that they're basing some of it off of, and some of it's fictionalized. But similar to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Bradley Cooper's playing a titan of Hollywood in that era. But that's such a minor role. I like what you're saying though. That makes sense. I want somebody to like put together. I want Quentin Tarantino to put together like curate a film festival of just great directors, 8 movies where it's set in the time of their childhood, because that's going to be
right. Yeah, like something just easy for them to do because they could relate so much to it and speak up so much about it, right? Like, that would be interesting just to see that list of directors who've done similar movies, right? So, hey, that could be a future episode. Who knows?
Right.
So next, again, I think this is both you and I favorite, based off of a lot of the categories we were talking about, and that's Nightmare Alley. Again,
sorry, you said my favorite?
Oh, you mean Space Jam 2? Sorry, I meant second favorite. So,
okay, second.
Yeah. My bad. I'm really, really sorry. Please forgive me.
Space Jam 2, send me those checks. Send me some free swag. Send me some
t-shirts. I know, right?
I'll wear it every day. I
Come on,
really need them. Yeah.
Come on, Bronny. Yeah, we're giving you as much love as possible. But yeah, Nightmare Alley. Nightmare Alley, I think this is another nominee that I also really, really fell in love with when I heard it being announced, because just like Drive My Car, I was not expecting any shine to be given to this movie. It came out at a very unusual time where you had Spider-Man No Way Home dominating the box office, and this came out around the same time, and hardly anyone was paying attention to it. And which is a shame, because it really deserved the attention that now it's getting. So I'm really happy that it finally got its nod here. We spoke about this movie already. I don't know what else more there is to say. It's just a brilliantly done movie, great directing, amazing cast, great storyline. Even though depressing as it is, it's still very well executed. This is a type of movie that I do feel people will be talking about a lot more. So within Guillermo's library of films, he's not a stranger to being nominated. I mean, Shape of Water obviously was a surprise runaway during that year. It won Best Feature. I think this is better than that, so again, if this came out in a different year, like your example, if this came out the same year Nomadland came out, I'm pretty sure that this could have a good shot at winning the Oscar that year. But I'm just really, really happy it's getting the recognition that it's getting now.
We were talking about the black and white treatment with Belfast and how that, similar to last year where Parasite came back out in theaters in black and white. I saw that. I had a great time. It's a film nerd kind of thing, but it totally reframed the movie. There's certain things that popped out more than other things. I thought that was fun. They did that too with Nightmare Alley. Problem is, I couldn't bring myself to stomach that film again. I do agree with you. I think in film classes 30 years from now, that might be the Guillermo del Toro one that makes the syllabus. I'm not
Yeah.
sure, but that's very possible. It. I think part of the problem is word of mouth, and I'm not. It's to me very unrewatchable. I remember having a hard time sleeping that night, and I was hungry before the movie, and I couldn't eat after the movie because my stomach was upset. I know I'm a little sensitive. If someone likes horror movies and has a good stomach for that, it shouldn't be that much of a problem. But watch it. The final scene, I think everyone needs to see it one time. It is not so upsetting that it will like. I know that that's a strong reaction. That's just how well done the movie was. The final scene where Bradley Cooper smiles and he has that final line blew me away. The fact he's not nominated in the acting category for this to me is a huge snub. Even though people weren't talking about it enough and people seemed to be just happy it was nominated at all. They weren't expecting much. It was released on Spider-Man weekend, right? That's a tough second billing. This feels like one of those, right, where we're not giving it its due in present day. It was such an amazing movie, and we know that Guillermo del Toro is great. When he was recently went viral in the film world for talking about some of the craft categories that there aren't going to be included the traditional way during the ceremony, and he was going on about how important the crafts are. And I do believe that there's a few directors on this list that we could make this claim for, but they are taking every single category and executing them, and the amount like he's feels like a Spielberg level of someone who cares about making movies so damn much. And I'm gonna go and agree with you. It doesn't make sense after like the first wave of people seeing it, but I'm gonna say it's his best movie. I feel fully comfortable with that, especially if we're excluding genre movies, which he's was traditionally more of a genre movie guy. But if it's harder for those to compete in that category, this is for just all movies. I think this is his best one. At least it spoke to me most intensely.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, again, we know a lot of movies out there may not be in the general audience or at the time it come out like a huge critical acclaim type of movie, but it becomes a cult hit, right? Because people see it after the fact, right? So that's why I do feel. And it also depends on what else he has coming out in the next couple of years. But in 10 years' time, I could easily see people talking about this movie and bring it up in conversation, So, again, just really happy that it did get its recognition in this category. Next, we have only two left. So we have next The Power of the Dog. So, again, not Temple of the Dog, which was a trivia question that I got incorrect during one of our trivia nights. But this is the Jane Campion epic or opus to a new... would you consider this movie to be a Western? I feel like there's that kind of debate on, like, is it a Western? Is it not?
Somebody's called it an anti-Western. I was like, fuck it, we're just gonna throw them all in that category. At that point, why get so meta? Yeah, it's set in the West. There's cowboy dudes on the ranch and farmer stuff happening. It is so much more than just a Western. And the traditional Western being like more gunslingers duking it out in a frontier town. Like, it's not that, but I'm going to go ahead and say, it falls in that umbrella. At the end of the day, if there was one category, it's like a human drama that just absolutely face fucks the audience with the high quality of acting. And like, it feels more of a drama than, like, it transcends Western for sure. But I'm going to say we're going to give it both of those categories when it gets a little slash between them. And some movies get like the little 4 different categories. It's definitely the Western one, in my opinion. Yeah, even if Sam Elliott disagrees, but
we already know what he could do. Call him a little B word, Mr. Mustache. Oh, I'm sorry, I starred in a bunch of Westerns. This is not Western, whatever. But anyway,
your voice I stole. It was your bad opinions Let's go. We're going after Sam Elliott. Let's do it.
I know.
Let's start.
Let's do it. Yeah. Come on, guys. Let's tweet at him. Um, but yeah, a lot of comparisons to Brokeback Mountain here in a certain way. But I think it has some aspects of that. Again, it's a movie that deals with human condition, sexuality, relationships, family. It has a lot of that drama in there. And how people are perceived one way without realizing that there's something completely different because of the way they choose to live their lives and all that. I think the directing was pretty well done here. The acting itself is phenomenal. I think everyone in the cast, you could easily say, does an amazing job, and at any given time could be recognized for their work on this film. And you know, when I watched it, I really loved it. I don't think I would put this in my top 5 of last year, but definitely top 10 for sure. Because it definitely is a movie that I really enjoyed. As far as the cinephile in me appreciates this movie, you know, and I think that is what it's going for, or that's what those who consider themselves to be cinephiles or fans of cinema appreciate this movie the most. And you know, general audiences probably won't, but I do recognize what it was able to accomplish, and it definitely does deserve to be on this list. And I guess in a way, it is one of the forerunners for winning as well in this category, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it's the favorite. We talked about Jane Campion being a favorite for director. Her career trajectory, where she wins back in the day and then doesn't get what any other man would have gotten since then, is just like, oh, you get to make any movie you want after that, and and their careers kind of roses. Has instead had a long and tough road since then as a director and making great movies. Bright Star is a favorite. The and I almost want to say The Pianist. Is it The Piano? Her movie from 1990 that gets her the nomination back then. But
yeah,
the 90s. But an absolute, like, an unvarnished career, high quality cinema, and then being able to make it. This feels like an apex of Jane Campion's career. As when we're looking back, I think this is the best movie that she's made. I don't know if you pulled it up, but
it was a piano. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This is when I want to rewatch some of her older movies, and I want to rewatch this movie again. The first time I saw it, it didn't affect me the way it seems to have affected the mass audiences, but I also got lost in the directing and some of the storytelling choices. And then there's, I want to say it here, but like, there's the big reveal at the end that changes everything you saw before. And exactly what you're saying, you think somebody's one way and turns out they're another. And why is that dude so mad? I spent most of the movie thinking like, wow, Benedict Cumberbatch's character is an asshole. I don't want to spend any more time with him. Please, can I watch something else? And then it turns out it was much deeper than that. And I've listened to interviews about it, podcasts about it. I've heard it recontextualized, and that makes it so much more special. I personally, I'm not far off from you. I think when the critics have a consensus that this is the best movie or one of the best movies, it's very easy for other people to fall in line. Honestly, my first opinion was I didn't love it, and it was a more complicated watch than that. And yeah, it is easy to see how well done it was. The fact that it's a favorite at the Oscars says a lot about how it got from it speaks for itself. It earned its place in this list just off of merit. Cast is great. Kirsten Dunst's performance, to me, I want to watch the side project that's just her characters the whole time, and watching her devolve, because that was incredible to see. It has all 4 actors in the acting categories, right? With Cody Smith-McPhee, Kirsten Dunst, Jesse Plemons, and Benedict Cumberbatch. That's unreal on its own. That says a lot about a film's chances at the end of the day, and the fact that it's been doing so well with past awards. I feel it has the most nominations. I feel confident that it's going to win. I am excited to talk about which we have one more to do, but when we're talking about
Hmm.
snubs and what our favorites were, what we would choose. But as of right now, well, I'm not sure. I don't remember what the last movie is, but right now this is
Power of the Dog. The last movie we need to talk about.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were gonna say Clifford the Big Red Dog. Did you say Power the Dog? I was
No,
talking about
I was.
Clifford that whole time. I'm
Oh,
so
okay.
2021 Clifford the Big Red Dog is that's the movie everyone's talking about, right?
That
The
I
Jane
it,
Campion Netflix movie about the big red
yeah,
dog.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
I thought that's what we were talking about. I mean,
Yeah. 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 I don't
okay.
know. Okay. I got confused for a
Because
second.
no, because Clifford the Big Red Dog deals with
Yeah.
sexuality
Yes.
and
Yeah.
relationships and not perceiving one thing to be different than they really are. It's all encompassing for sure.
Aren't we all animals, and aren't these all just stories about animals at the end of the day?
Exactly,
What is the
exactly.
power of the dog when you think about it?
what what is life? Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, let's go ahead and dive into the last movie here on the list, and that is Space Jam 2. Uh,
Okay. Finally, we get to talk about Space Jam 2. It hasn't been getting enough mention.
it has not. No, it's this movie from up and coming director Steven Spielberg that is
West
West
Side
Side
Story.
Story.
Right.
What is there to be said about this movie? You have a seasoned veteran, legend in Hollywood, tackling something he hasn't tackled at all in his career, and that's adapting a musical, a beloved musical. And I know when it was first announced that he was doing that, a lot of people were like, "Why? Not necessary. The original is good as it is." But it's Spielberg. He's going to put his own twist on it. He's going to be able to possibly expand on the whole story that is being told in West Side Story. And he does. I watched this movie, but I watched the original right before it. And I love the fact that he was able to expand a lot of moments within the movie that actually made more sense. He rearranged a lot of the music, to kind of properly align with the way the story beats go, and it really made me understand the whole story better than the original ever did.
Yeah.
The cast was very well done, with the exception of maybe one person who's still very controversial to this day, Mr. Ansel Elgort there. But you have great performances from new faces like Rachel Zegler and Ariana DeBose and Mike Feist, who I still think should have been nominated for supporting actor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And another legend returning, Rita Moreno, playing a whole different role in this movie. Cinematography was brilliant. The colors, the music, the dancing on the screen, just everything was just what you would expect from Spielberg, and I think he did a really good job. I'm happy to see him do a movie like this because at least he can say that he's done it all at this point. Will we ever see him direct a Marvel film? No, but we don't need that, because he's had his movies in the past, like E.T., that can kind of fall within that genre, right? So he doesn't really need to touch anything like that. Some are saying that this might be his last movie before his whatever opus, tribute to himself. I don't know. But if this is one of the last genre type movies he's going to make, I think it's a good way to go out, for sure. So definitely deserves to be mentioned and recognized in this category for sure. Will it win? More definitely not, but again, it's Spielberg. You have to kind of recognize whatever he does and whatever he touches. But I do think, compared to some of his more recent films, this definitely does deserve that recognition. As far as because he as of late he's been kind of like, I don't know if that's was worthy of a nominee or what have you. But yeah.
Yeah, everything from like The Post or Ready Player One. He's been in this weird era for a minute,
Yeah.
where if he's doing more of the sci-fi stuff, then and more genre stuff, it hasn't been as beloved. And then his dramas have been beloved by like Oscar voters, for example. But
Right.
you're right. This one is more of a big spectacle, widely seen, and it's nice to see him as a main character in Hollywood with this movie, as opposed to like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the guy who used to be good made that.
Right.
That problem. The This movie, you're right about it recontextualizing. So my hot take is that this is better than the original. At the end of Oscar night,
Mm.
we won't see this have more wins than the original, no matter what.
No.
The I personally think the way it recontextualized the story, exactly what you're talking about, the story makes more sense. And old Hollywood, the old West Side Story, served its purposes. They weren't
Yeah.
as concerned about some of the racial aspects or how did these people get this way. And bad guys are obviously bad, and it's okay for white people to wear brown face and speak with accents and things like that. That was a different era in Hollywood, and it was successful in its time. As far as telling a story, I honestly think this one is more successful. I think the camera work, and yes, West Side Story, the original one, is groundbreaking. It's doing things that people had not done before, had not seen before. So you got to
Yeah.
give it its credit on influence. But when we're comparing like the camera work in Spielberg, it feels very obvious that this was a labor of love with the incredible amount of care that went into this film. I think the acting is better than the original. I think that the
Mm.
choreography, I at least found it more compelling, even though a lot of people who didn't like this one were comparing to the original, going, "Well, it wasn't the original one, and I love that movie, so then therefore this isn't good." If you just show people who didn't understand that this was, the remake, both movies, I honestly think this one is better. And then obviously, like, technically it's easier to make a good movie nowadays with our
Yeah.
current technology. But even just the story itself, and we better understand with just a few tweaks. I think that's another one which we're not going to talk about screenplays, but for the adapted screenplay,
Hmm.
Tony Kushner, in my opinion, should have gotten the nomination there, just because, yeah, there's not a lot of work being done. They're not rewriting the whole thing, but there's a few tweaks that happen that to me really help this story become more of a compelling human narrative, believable story. And when you're talking about musicals, some people don't want it to be believable, and they don't want to
Right.
deal with like the nuances and the realities of the characters, and they like the song and dance thing, which the original did perfectly well. This one, I think, takes some of those other aspects and brings them out, um, and it's a more complete film, in my opinion.
Mm.
And you're right, Mike Feist snub, Rachel Ziegler snub, in my opinion. Rita Moreno could have gotten nominated, but wasn't. But fortunately, Ariana DeBose did in that same, what would have been the same category. Ariana DeBose is a favorite, or is a possible to likely winner in that category. So I don't think it's gonna end up with few nominations. And I think at the end of the day, when you want to compare it to the original, people will say that it's not as good, and it definitely didn't break as much ground, and it won't win as many Oscars. But in my opinion, it was a very successful project, and I adored that movie. I saw it few times in theaters, and I literally wept the first two times I saw it. If
Mm.
someone isn't going in cynically and is open to the experience of that film, I'm a sucker for musicals. That's part of what does it. We'll talk about Snubs in a minute, but In the Heights was another one that had a similar effect on me this year, that I think should be on this list. So this movie might not be for everybody, but I think it was an incredible achievement as a film.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I'm glad that you mentioned In the Heights, and we'll transition to Snubs in a minute. But there was that feeling that when In the Heights came out, that was the musical of last year. And then West Side Story came out, and then everyone, because there was a lot of skepticism with West Side Story. A lot of people didn't want to think that this was going to end
Yeah,
up being the movie it was, and I think it did change a lot of people's minds. Hence, why probably this is getting more recognized than In the Heights. I do think there's the other contender here that should have been considered as far as best musical was Dear Evan Hansen. I mean, the power that you got from that movie, I that main character, and really believing that this teenage boy can
get
go
it.
through life. What
Yeah,
happened?
to get a 73-year-old man to play a 14-year-old child without any prosthetics was so incredible. That's what made that movie so powerful. That's a Best Actor snub.
No, if anything, it should have at least been nominated for hair and makeup. I mean, come on. I mean, that is like a missed
Are you
opportunity
kidding
there.
me?
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. But before we continue, I wanted to quickly talk about Bulletproof Coffee. Bulletproof Coffee is my favorite coffee of choice to start off my mornings with. Why? Because it's clean coffee. What does that mean? Well, one, There are no chemicals in it. Why? Because they go through this multi-step process of making sure that all of their beans are fully clean and free of any chemicals, so that when you get the beans delivered to you, it is the pure beans, the pure coffee, the goodness that you've been wanting, the taste, the flavor, and the nutritional value as well, without worrying about any added chemicals or anything else put into the mix there. It also doesn't have that weird acidic taste that some coffees give you. I don't know how about you, but for me, some coffees kind of give me that weird sensation in my stomach, makes me a little burpy, and it kind of drags me down a little bit instead of really waking me up, which is something that I need from my coffee every day. Bulletproof also offers a lot of keto-friendly snacks and supplements, anything that you need to kind of add to your everyday nutritional needs, add to your diet, and pretty much transforms the way you feel every day. So for a limited time, if you use this code that you see on the screen right now, LOWKEY GEEK, all caps, one word, you can get 15% off your order. So what is it better than that, right? Check out the link in the description of this episode. Use this code, get yourself your discount, and make your mornings a little bit more bulletproof with Bulletproof Coffee. Now, back to the episode. But with that being said, yeah, let us dive into poor dear Evan Hansen. Let us talk about snubs. So I don't have many, but I'm dying to hear what you have to say. So let me just go through mine first, because again, I don't have many. If anything, again, it opens up the conversation about what should really be considered as a top film. Like, are we basing it off of cinematic achievement, or are we basing it off of the response from the general movie-going audience as far as popularity, right? Because I think one of the biggest arguments here, and I do agree to a certain extent, is Spider-Man No Way Home could have been considered to be best film of last year. And not only did it pretty much revigorated the movie-going experience and broke tons of box office records, brought people back to theater during a still dangerous time in going out. I think people kind of put caution to the wind and just were like, I need to see this movie, right? And it's the only movie that was able to do that all of last year. Yes, it's a comic book movie. Yes, it's a superhero movie. It's a genre movie, but you could argue the fact that the acting in the movie was actually pretty well done compared to other superhero movies that you've seen, in recent years. I just think it would have been nice to, and it's gonna take time for the Academy to be able to accept these type of entries, and I think they're trying to include such things. That's why they're doing like their Twitter vote as to what the Twitterverse thinks is going to be the top film, which the last time I checked was Cinderella, like on Amazon. I'm just like, okay. Yeah. But and then there was the conversation about including a new category, which is like popular audience category or something like that. Like, let's not turn this into like the MTV Movie Awards. It's not necessary. But I think the Academy should be open to the fact that such films do mean a lot to a lot of people. And again, going back to what you mentioned before, if you want to start increasing your viewership to include general audiences a little bit more, recognizing these type of films that they are going out to watch will help with that. And I think will give more, justification as to why someone would spend 2 to 3 hours on a Sunday night watching your awards ceremony, right? So, I do feel like it would have been nice to see that type of recognition for a movie like that. Other than that, I guess I would say, again, because I am a huge Wes Anderson fan, French Dispatch would have been nice. In a perfect world that's catered to me to be recognized in best film. But when you compare it to everything else on this list, it's I could understand why it wouldn't be recognized as much. I actually really enjoyed Come On, Come On. I thought that was a very well done movie there, and I thought that was something that would gel well with the voting academy. You know,
Yeah.
that's the type of movie that is catered to them. And I thought it was brilliantly put together. The acting alone itself was what made that movie, and it, you know, the heart and emotion that Joaquin Phoenix had, along with the boy actor there, I thought was just really really well done. But other than that, Kong versus Godzilla. I mean, come on, that was another movie that was a
Hey.
masterpiece on the
Oh,
screen, and
in
no,
seriousness,
that's
would you? Because I know that you love these movies. Would you put Spider-Man on your 10 pictures ballot if you had a vote? I'm going to put you on the record right now. You
I
do.
would, I would,
Okay.
yeah, I would.
I don't hate it. It's annoying to me because the conversation has been so skewed against movies like that historically. I think another fun series we could do is beyond directors making movies set in their childhoods would be superhero movies that are taken seriously by critics. And we've had that conversation before. That's a fun one to have, where Joker gets taken seriously. Birdman's taken seriously a few years ago, even though those aren't traditional superhero movies.
Yeah.
Black Panther got some shine a few years ago. I It's so hard to fathom a world where, and people talk about it with comedies too, right? Like,
Mhm.
if Anchorman is the most loved and one of the best written, one of the best, like, I don't know if you'd say acted or improv or whatever, but like, why is it not in conversation? But it's hard for me to even wrap my mind around that. Living in a world where those movies get taken seriously by Oscar
Yeah.
voters and people who take themselves seriously, it's almost like it's a completely different art form. And it's
Mhm.
not. These are all movies and they're all in
Yeah.
contention every year. I like this. I like that you used your moment to talk about snubs to go on that, because you have a point. I personally don't know if I put Spider-Man in my 10. I know I had an awesome time. I know that a million people had an awesome time 3 times because everyone went to go see it
Yeah.
multiple times in theaters. The then there's obviously, like, we get into this weird, like, elitist question of, like, what who gets to decide what makes things good. Is the ticket seller, like, and so it gets deep, but really at the end of the day, it matters on Oscar night, and it matters to me
Mhm.
because I don't know, is Spider-Man actually a great film? uh,
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised if I know I would include more of those type of movies on my ballot than get included at the Oscars. That's for damn sure. And this last year, especially when Spider-Man single-handedly web slings in and saves the entire film industry uh, while it's in peril. uh, Come on, at least if you're gonna give him a fan vote, at least rig the fan vote. You're putting on Twitter, for goodness sakes.
Right.
You're letting
Right.
people vote multiple times. Hire some boss to go in there and at least give it something at the end of the day. That's a whole nother. I want to hear the oral history of who the hell's idea that was. In that same interview I was talking about with the person who's it's not a manager or producer, but it's the person who's like making the show happen on Sunday.
Mhm.
And they were asking about that, and his excuse was like, "Hey, listen, we wanted this to be an award show for everybody, even if no matter what kind of movie fan you are, and we wanted to have that conversation where people are talking, and that's on Twitter." And I was like, "Yeah, that all makes sense." Worst idea you've ever had, because have you ever given the internet a vote? And has it ever gone well? Hey everyone, I want you to help rename this show right now. Should it be Geek and the Wolf, or it should be Butt Fart TV Time? And then what do you know? 98% of people thought, okay, now that's what we're called. Sorry, Renee. Like,
Right.
who, how, why? And if you wanted to give Spider-Man something, that was not the right way to do it.
No.
There is the idea that, like, it wins the box office, and that's all
That's
it
their
makes it
award, right?
need. But I don't.
Yeah.
I think that's also a cop out. I think that
Yeah.
it's time for, while we're opening our minds about who gets to be included in certain categories, I also think we can be open minded about what gets included in what is a movie and what is a film and all of that. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you said all that. For my snubs list, I'm the opposite. I have a lot. I have a lot. I have a lot of movies that I think were incredibly well done, and I think, and so I'm really going to use this as the, if you haven't seen this, you should see this moment of, before we call it a wrap and just go into
Mhm.
Oscars night and never talk about 2021 again, except Nightmare Alley in film class for our grandchildren or something. But
Yeah.
um, I'm going to start with the most lighthearted movie of all time. Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar. I am not kidding. I saw the trailer, or like it wasn't even a trailer; it was a little teaser, and I go, "Well, that looks silly and absurd. What's happening?" And it's Kristen Wiig, and the her name's escaping me, but she made My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And there was one night, it was a silly mood, like it had a tough week. I put it on, and I am not kidding. I not only laughed, I laughed out loud. I not only laughed out loud, it was the entire movie from rewinding scenes, which the amount of times I have that at a home viewing experience, like on the level of Anchorman or like any all time great comedies. And I'm so glad that people are doing their 2021 reviews because a lot
Hmm.
of people have talked about how like that was an underrated movie. That should have been crowd pleaser of the year. And anyone who hasn't seen it, I can't condone drug usage, but if someone were to smoke a little weed, you can watch that movie. It's like it's a mom movie at the end of the day too. My mom was like, "Hey, I need to laugh. What do you recommend?" I was like, "Mom, listen to me right now. This Kristen Wiig movie is stellar. I laughed so hard. I saw it with somebody else, and we were literally stomachs in pain. It was a fantastic, dumb, great movie. I want to live in a world where that gets nominated for stuff too, but that's another combo. Um, in the more serious realm, Lady Macbeth could be on this list on any other year. I think the directing was phenomenal, the acting was
Yeah.
phenomenal. Not unlike West Side Story, people don't really love it compared to the original, or like certain ways of how it was executed. People pick nits, but overall, this
Yeah.
is a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
Annette, I'm. It's a weird one. It's not a fun movie. The word of mouth did not play well for it. It was a bizarre musical, super well done. Leos
Hmm.
Carax, I think is the name of the director. Adam Driver, Marianne Cotillard, who've been recognized before. I'm surprised I didn't get some more conversation, but I don't think anyone had a great time except me. And I was literally sitting there, mouth wide open at the theater, just like I can't believe this is happening before me. Um, the Card Counter, Paul
Oh.
Schrader
Hmm.
writes and directs this one. Oscar Isaac, God bless the man. Ty Sheridan and Tiffany Haddish in supporting roles. Phenomenal human drama. Very cool, slick movie. At the end of the day, it's kind of like the Aaron Sorkin problem, where someone who's a writer is trying to direct movies too, and it's not coming
Yeah.
across as polished or like they. I think maybe if possible, Paul Schrader could hand over the reins for directing, but honestly, unlike Aaron Sorkin, I still thought it was very well done and well directed. Just maybe a little more. It's a little simple, where like that's not
Hmm.
necessarily his forte, but loved that movie. Had an awesome time watching that at home. Was very moved. Um, Titane,
I'm
bizarre.
glad you brought that up because
Did you
that
watch
was
it?
I
It
not yet,
was
not yet,
okay.
but it's
Yeah.
on my queue
Okay.
because there was so much talk about that coming out of Cannes that
Yeah.
and you usually like the big talk movie from Cannes gets a lot of recognition around
Yeah.
this time of year, and that just disappeared from
Yeah.
the conversation as a whole.
If you wanted to make a movie that was so immoral that American audiences wouldn't want to see it or tell people that they had seen it, where they would be embarrassed to mention it to their friends or coworkers. Or if you wanted to make a movie that was just so nauseating in how realistic the body horror was that
Mhm.
even the genre fans, like only the most extreme ones, are going to see it. That's not too unlike Nightmare Alley. I left stomach upset. I even more sad. I saw it. I was in Austin, Texas. I got a burger during it at one of those theaters that also serves food. And I'm not kidding. Halfway through the movie, I just like put it away. I was like, no, this isn't happening. I can't watch this movie and eat at the time. Don't watch it on a night where you haven't slept or you're having a weak stomach. If you're up for it and you want to do that challenge, it is an amazing movie regardless of what's actually happening on the screen, there's some
Mhm.
bizarre things that I've never thought I would see in my life, even in my imagination or my weirdest nightmares. Some really amazing things happening. The acting is phenomenal. The directing is phenomenal. Every single aspect of that movie is so well done. I think it's just too much of a freak show
Sure.
to package and sell to American audiences. They would have almost had to do that thing where you don't tell them what it is, and then people end up saying, "Oh, I thought it was going to be a shocky, scary type of movie," and
Mhm.
then they're disappointed. So I'm not surprised it didn't get um, wide viewing, having seen it, but I have to recommend it to anyone who's up for that. It was super well done. Even though it's not my genre, it's not for me, but it was regardless. You had to give it props there. Another one that was criminally underseen was 9 Days. Um, the this is one where I've heard a few other critics in like it was at theaters for only a couple weeks or so.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard a few other critics put it on their end of the year list. And somebody was even putting it, I think it was on NPR. They were talking about like movies that they wanted to lift up to people to go see because it had been underseen. The the cast was really good. It was Winston Duke, who's most popular as playing M'Baku in Black Panther.
Oh, right.
Zazie
Okay.
Beetz is in it, Benedict Wong, and these are all people who have superhero careers, and then
Right.
they do the one for me, one for them thing, and they get to make this indie. And oh my god, for a human story about the meaning of life, it was beautiful. It was astonishing. I remember I saw it because it was only in theaters for a little bit. I had to post about it on social media, and literally, Winston Duke and Benedict Wong, and I think it was the director or somebody else, they all like reposted it because they were trying, like, some of their feeds were just, hey, everyone, please go see this movie. It was
Nice.
awesome. Like it was a moment, but it also felt like the best kept secret in the world. And I told a friend about it, and then they went and saw it, and they go, "Oh my god, you were right." So if anyone wants a beautiful, life affirming world like that makes you, it answers those questions of like the purpose of being alive so beautifully. It's hard to describe. I don't even want to get into synopsis or the plot, but just go see it. The trailer almost made me think it was going to be like a horror movie or something
Mm.
scarier or like psychological drama, and there is some psychology to it for sure, but it is not upsetting at all. It is an intense, psychologically intense movie, but
Mm-hmm.
it is more of it is so beautiful and so well done. I wish that movie had gotten any amount of credit, including Oscar nominations or anything else. That to me was criminally underseen. Um, I'll go through the rest of the list more quickly. In the Heights, we've talked about. I loved it. Saw it multiple times. That should have gotten more cred. Lost Daughters should be on the Best Picture list. I don't know why it's not. I had to double check and see, like, did I miss that? It doesn't make sense to me, especially when it's got
Yeah.
other categories.
Yeah.
Um, so we talked about that one though. Passing is one that we only mentioned when we were talking about Snubs for acting, but
Right.
that was another actress debut film. Rebecca Hall, super well done. That was another one of those that was barely in theaters. I'm so glad I got to see it while it was there. Tessa Thompson, Ruth Negga, very powerful, important drama. Well done, especially for a first time director. Really well
Mm-hmm.
done. And then some of the other ones, I got to go to Austin Film Festival this year, which was one of my first times to go to an in-person film festival and just like see as many things as I could. I'm so glad I did because at the end of the day, got to see Worst Person in the World. Didn't know that it was going to be taken so seriously at the Oscars, and I would eventually want to watch it anyway.
Yeah.
Love that. Come on! You mentioned it. Joaquin Phoenix playing a human dude. We don't get to see that enough. It was really well
Yep.
done, and I love that director. Their movie Beginners is one of my favorite films. I that was a really special movie. Spencer, we talked about in acting especially, but that could be
Mm-hmm.
in Best Picture or Best Director. Um, Another international film, Luca Guadagnino directed The Hand of God this year, and this is the person who made Call Me by Your Name, which is
Oh,
my
okay.
if I'll plug my letterbox later. It's my number 2 or number 1 movie of all time, depending on what day it is. That was really well done, coming of age story about the director's childhood, which is another theme that we mentioned here. It's a thing. You mentioned French Dispatch. We've mentioned House of Gucci a lot, and then we mentioned Flea this episode a bunch. So
Yep.
I could see any of those in this Best Picture category. A lot of the other ones I mentioned, everyone should go see it. And then, most importantly, the number 1 film of 2021. What do you think? What do you think I'm going to say, Renee?
You're gonna say
Space
lamb.
Jam, Lamb, Space Lamb, Space Pig 2, a Nicolas Cage legacy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Where
yeah.
Space
You
Jam
just
2.
you just reminded me. Pig. I
Now,
would totally put
now.
pig on this list.
And
Yeah.
it's not on my list, but I get, yeah. Why isn't it here? It should be somewhere. Actor, give me something. It
Yeah.
was It was awesome. That was a great movie.
For
Great
sure.
movie. Yeah.
And I'm not joking. Like seriously. Like Pig is a movie that I think was well deserved of a watch. One of Nicolas Cage's best performances in God knows how long.
92 minutes long. Just
Yeah.
watch it. It was good.
Yeah.
I wasn't mad
It
about it
was
at all.
huge surprise.
Yeah.
pleasant surprise. Yeah, but yeah, no, for sure, Space Jam 2 needed to have a nod here. You know, I think LeBron James should have been nominated for Best Actor,
Mm-hmm.
and you know,
Don
Best
Cheadle supporting.
Supporting, Don Cheadle. Yeah, for sure. You know,
Zendaya for playing Lola Bunny.
yeah,
Great,
no,
great. One of the most
absolutely,
important characters in film history, and
yeah.
it's a difficult role to pull off. We talked about this with West Side Story.
Hmm.
When you're, and we talked about this with Tragedy of Macbeth.
Yeah.
If you're gonna make something, and it's tough to compare to the original, but my God, did they pull it off?
Oh, they
Hmm.
committed. That's the thing. They
Yeah,
really committed to it, and I
yeah.
think they did a brilliant job at doing that. So,
I
um,
waited 20 years of my life for that fucking movie, and that's the shitty product. All right, jokes over, folks. This is our last episode before we do our brackets. That movie was such trash. I waited. That was my favorite movie when I was a boy, Space Jam 1. And I said, you know what? I'm 33, 34 years old. I'm going to go see Space Jam 2. People aren't giving it the credit, but it's going to be great. And what shit? What the hell was that? We need to do
you want to do a
revisit
breakdown of
Space
Space Jam
Jam
2?
2. Yeah, we need to do a watch party and the live reaction podcast. I'm going to what the hell? I need to know how it got so bad. I was
Yeah.
joking. I don't know if you knew this, Renee. I was joking every other time when I said it was a snub in every single category. It was
Oh, you
not
were?
good, dude.
I thought
Yeah,
you
I
were
was.
serious.
No, it was a bit, and
Oh,
good God, it was bad. It's time. I have to be honest now. This I can't keep living with this lie. What a car wreck! It's just someone took all my family photo albums that my mother had been meticulously crafting for years, all my cherished childhood possessions, and burned them in front of me in a movie theater while like seven other people coughed and ate popcorn next to me. What an awful night. Ugh. I almost wish that movie theaters had closed forever just so I never would have had to see Space Jam 2. It made
ima-
me
ima-
regret
imagine
the
that
whole
was the
article.
movie to put the nail in the coffin for movie theaters.
That was it.
AMC, Regal,
Yep.
Alamo, Cinemark, all of them go bankrupt because of the
Yep.
release of Space Jam 2.
AMC is now bought out by another company, and what do you know? It's now a Wendy's franchise. Sorry, everyone.
It's a Dunkin' Donuts Pizza
Yep.
Hut hybrid. Yeah. Oh my god. No,
All the
no,
chips on
great.
Space Jam too. Good
Yeah.
God.
No, great list there. The serious list, like really, really good
Yeah.
list there. A lot of good mentions. You reminded me of some of the other movies too, as well, which is really good. But yeah, but at the end of the day, final predictions here. Again, you have a lot of good movies, a good selection here. Movies that deserve to be on the list. A few that are somewhat questionable, but for you, what is your personal favorite, and what do you think is the lock to win this year's best film?
My personal favorite was Space Jam 2. My lock, what I think is gonna win is Power of the Dog. It has the most nominations. That's to me feels like the safest money. It's not as much of a lock as Best Director. I'm gonna go ahead and say that Power of the Dog is who I'm gonna put on my ballot.
Mhm.
Renee, if I change it at the last minute, I still get credit if the new answer is right. But I'm sure what'll probably happen is I'll overthink it. I'll change it at the last minute, and then it'll end up being Power of the Dog anyway. Because
Right.
right now that feels like the safest money. There are so many. Let me pull up the list for my actual. Oh, here we go. For the actual, my personal choice, this is a tough one. I think I put Drive My Car for director right, and then Licorice
Yeah.
Pizza to me was maybe one of the ones where I had the best time. Nightmare Alley might be the most effective movie as far as directing from this list. I'm gonna go ahead and have to say I can't do the Space Jam 2 bit again, can I? To stall. Um, Say if I had a vote, because there's the other question: is it what's my personal favorite, or what do I think is the best? Because what I think is the best, I probably would give it to Nightmare Alley or Drive My Car. But my personal favorite, what I had the best time with at the theater, it have to be West Side Story is going to take second place to Licorice Pizza, and that's just what I enjoyed the most in the theater, having a good time with the kind of movie that is made for me. Not necessarily what I think is best, and definitely not what I think will win. Is
Right.
lower, way lower on those lists. What about you,
Okay.
man?
No, that's good. I think like I mentioned before, if the world was catered to me and I had, if there was going to be a winner in this list, it would be Drive My Car. Again, I would love to see again another Parasite moment where director, best film, bring more audiences to watch Japanese cinema, because I do think more eyes need to watch these Japanese movies because there's so much good ones that come out every year. I do know it does look like Power of the Dog is the ultimate favorite to win this right now. But I am going to go on a limb here and say Power of the Dog won't win. I'm going to say that CODA is going to win best film this year. Again, it's if you look at recent award ceremonies, CODA is getting definitely more attention when it comes to this category. We're not talking about directing. We're not talking about maybe actor or actress or anything like that. But I do feel like that the momentum is kind of swaying towards CODA right now. And I do think if we are to think, voting ended, I think, on this past Friday or Saturday. And I think if you're talking about the new generation of voters, they're the ones that got this movie on the list to begin with, right? For a reason. Just like, they got Drive My Car on the list, Nightmare Alley on the list, and all that stuff like that. If CODA is getting so recognized, I have a feeling that this could be the sleeper hit of the awards ceremony. Could it be a situation where, again, people that year thought La La Land was going to run away with Best Feature, and then all of a sudden it was Moonlight, even though it was announced La La Land, and then the whole crazy shenanigans that happened during that presentation, but Moonlight ran away with that movie, with that award that year, which a lot of people were not expecting, right? So could this be another situation where maybe this is the case here too? So this is my, Steph Curry 3-point shot, 2 seconds on the clock. I think CODA is going to run away and surprise a lot of people in this category.
I honestly, because the momentum says that you're right. I feel like it's a red herring, where it's the kind of thing where people are talking about it more than they were before and are surprised by the momentum, and then that kind of like begets its own momentum. We talked about it. There's a chance that it is in enough 2 and 3 spots with the ranked choice voting that it ends up winning out. I think that more people will have it lower, and so many people have Power of the Dog number 1 on their list that it might win out. But I think you're right. That's definitely my second choice as far as most likely, and it's a fun place to live in when on Sunday night you don't know what'll happen. And if you have, I love chaos. Always give me the surprise, even if Power of the Dog is what I would choose or what I would think would win, or I'd rather lose the Oscar pool and have anything else win and just have a fun night where other films get recognized. Except Anthony Hopkins beating Chadwick Boseman, absolutely unacceptable. That was fucked up. That was gross and weird and rude and wrong. I don't feel good about that still. I hope that never happens again, or anything on that level, because that was weird. Anthony Hopkins gave a great performance. That was fucking weird that they did that. I hated it.
Yeah.
So
no.
This year will have to be better than that. No matter what happens, any movie could win this, and that won't be the last taste in our mouths, unlike last year, because that was just horrible.
Right. Yeah.
This year has to.
Yeah, you would hope, right? I mean, we said this before. On any given Sunday, who knows, right? This could be one of those things where, it could be a sure thing, or we could get a surprise here and there, right? We just won't know until those winners are announced. But that's what makes it exciting for people like you and I, who are such big lovers of film and movies in general, just to see what is going to be recognized or not. And like you, if CODA doesn't win but Power of the Dog does, I understand. I get it. It's not a bad movie. I totally understand that. Will you see me jumping up and going nuts if CODA was announced? Hell yeah. Because again, I do feel like it would be great for a movie like that to get recognized. But yeah, even if it gets that one win with Troy, then I'm pretty happy about that as well. Because again, that will be the little nod to this was a good movie and here's your recognition for it. But at the end of the day, doesn't matter what the fuck we think. We want to know what all of you guys think. What are your choices here? Like, what are your favorites from all of last year? Who would you peg to be the main winner in this category, or directing? Because we talked about that earlier. Let us know in the comments, and let's have a discussion and conversation. It's going to be fun to see what happens during awards time. So it's just around the corner. It's just like you said, a week away. So I'm really, really excited and happy to see what's going to happen. And stay tuned to the channel, because we are going to have an episode where we fill out our Oscar ballots and we compare our list. And we are going to cover the smaller categories, because I do think they are still very important and they should be recognized for sure, even though the Oscars themselves don't think so. But stay tuned to the channel for that, and stay tuned to the channel because we may be doing a live reaction broadcast of the entire awards ceremony. Stay tuned to the channel for details on that, as Blake and I try to figure out the logistics behind it. But if we do pull it off, I think it'll be a lot of fun. And if anything, if we don't get to do that, maybe we'll do like a quick live reaction after the show is done to kind of talk about the show as a whole. So, but yeah, the best way to keep up to date with all of that is to subscribe to this channel, y'all, and hit that notification bell so you'll get notified every time a new video is uploaded and what have you. So any final comments or thoughts about best film, directing, what have you?
Just quickly shouting out in the comments from our last video, or 2 videos ago, we were talking about actor and actress. People definitely getting dirty about the getting down and dirty into it with the Will Smith situation. Find me in the comments. I will be replying, and I will be trolling people too. I have no shame. I happen to agree with just about everything everybody said, but I still might just throw out some controversial opinions anyway, just to muddy the waters a little bit. Other than the comment section underneath this video, you can find me. I'm on Letterboxd. All the movies that I mentioned earlier, with the ones that were underseen, I rank every single movie that I see as soon as I see it. I'm at 2,600 now or so. I have lists of favorite movies. I love that app, and it's just another app that a lot of people, not enough people use, but it's like Goodreads for movies. I love that thing, and I need more people should be on there. On there, my screen name is Blake Wolf, BlakeWolf, like Blake Wolf's screen name. And please follow me on Letterboxd. I need to get my numbers up.
There you go. Like I said in previous episodes, let's get him to at least 19. Come on. He's only 2 away. 2 away. This could happen, y'all. This could happen.
All my friends need to be on this app. It's such a cool app. I love it. The user interface is actually great, but I'm obsessed with it. Logged everything on there. Come through. Find me at Letterboxd or the comments below.
No, definitely. And it is a great app and tool to use as a film lover in general, because you get to keep a log of all the movies you've watched, create your own list and what have you. So definitely a cool app. I should be utilizing it more, but I'm glad that Blake is taking full advantage of that. As for myself, Lowkey Geek, you could follow me. Everything that you see on screen or in the description of this episode. Instagram, Twitter, what have you, and of course the Lowkey Geek channel. Don't forget, subscribe, like, notification bell, all that good stuff. And if you want audio formats of these episodes, you could find it on your podcast platform of choice on the Lowkey Geek channel there, and you could download all of these episodes plus additional stuff that is uploaded throughout the week. So with that being said, I'm Rene, that's Blake. This has been fun. We'll catch you next time. Stay cool, stay classy, stay safe, and bye.
See you on the red carpet.
Da-da-da-da.